Now Pettersson to blast all that hit. Rowe, diving save, Hart as he flashes across. Briere sets up Carl, side of the net, deflected, score! Briere moving in, stops, cuts to the middle, still has it, shot! Score! Here's Hughes giving it across. Oh, it's right out, save! Save by Maher! Short-handed mid! He scores! Up top, cruising is Provorov. He scores! Ivan Provorov!
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Flyered Up Podcast. I am your host, Amedeo Grassia, along with my partner, Chris Maher. We are live streaming, as always, on the Painted Lines, TTP Sports and Flyers Fan Mania 93. For people who can't tune into this, tune in late, whatever, it'll always be on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast at. So, got a hefty show today. A lot of things to talk about. Gostisbehere being waived and clearing waivers. Talking about some Sabres games, and we're getting closer and closer towards the trade deadline. So, Chris, how are you feeling today?
I don't know, man. It's so weird because, like, that was not what I expected to see on Twitter yesterday as Ghost gets waived.
Mm-hmm.
That Sabres game was pathetic. They won, which I don't know if I was more pissed that they won or like more annoyed that it took them that much to where they had to like come back and win the game like that. Like with the way that they played, they didn't deserve to win that game, but it's so weird because I know a lot of people were like complaining in that game how like they benched like Lindblom, Patty, and Farabee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like, and I know there was also people complaining about, I saw this a lot on Twitter, and it was AV. And I kind of wanted to start the show open the show with this. Like, people were like complaining about AV like not going in during the second intermission. Like, is that really like that? Like, it's the worst team in the league. Like, just let them figure it out, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah. I don't see any issues with that. Like, we have a lot of stuff to get into, but before we get into all of the other stuff, we want to get a word here from the Painted Line sponsor. So hear what they have to say, and we'll be right back real quickly.
Hey, what's up, guys? March Madness is here. The NBA and NHL are both in full swing. Baseball opening day is coming up, while we here at the Painted Lines are devoted to bringing you top-notch content from all the major sports. We are excited to also now give you the opportunity to cash in on all that content and knowledge. If you follow the link below, you will have the opportunity to sign up with BetRivers, an online sportsbook, and get an instant new user deposit match of up to $250. That's free money that you can use and try to turn into more free money. Let's go. Don't sit there and waste all that money. Turn every basket into an otherwise meaningless Cavs-Timberwolves matchup on a random Wednesday in March. That makes it all the more exciting. For betting tips and advice, be sure to check out written content from our top prognosticator, Money Max, on our website at thepaintedlines.com, or check out the Tough Cover podcast right here on the Painted Lines YouTube channel. You've seen the commercials all over TV and radio, but now is the time. Sign up today with BetRivers using the link below and start cashing in on your love for sports. Using the link below will automatically inform BetRivers that TPL sent you, and you'll get that new user deposit match of up to $250. Don't miss out on this opportunity for some free money, baby.
Yeah, so definitely go and check that out, BetRivers, and sponsored with the Painted Line. So, getting back to what we were talking about with Alain Vigneault and what you brought up, Chris, I don't see any problem with that.
No, I don't either.
I would expect them to be that pissed. You're losing to a team that's now on an 18-game losing streak. They only have 6 wins total on the season, and you had a terrible start to the game and a terrible first and second period. So I would expect Alain Vigneault not to want to talk to his team and let the veterans sort everything out and get their shit together.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I feel like for the most part, and like, listen, if that's how it was, and if they didn't win that game, then it still wouldn't have mattered regardless. I still think it's not a huge. I don't think he has to really say much. I think they all kind of realize to wake up, and it worked too, as I said. So again, they won the game. I mean, listen, as much as we sit here and we harp on this team and like how bad they are, like I think you got to give them some credit, which I know I'll probably get boned for, but like I think you got to give them some credit for the reason that they're able to come back in games. I know it's not a good thing to continuously do it all the time, but I mean there's a lot of times where they're able to do it, and I've been saying it for a while now. When they switched up those lines in the end of that game, and they put G with Coots and Jake at the end of the second period there after the third goal, I think they did it. I've been saying this for like 3 weeks now. I feel like this has been a long time coming, and they finally put it together. And that line was, it felt like that line literally played the whole third period. And I understand the benching of some of the guys, because I thought a lot of them didn't necessarily play good in the first 40, and the 3 guys that got scratched were guys that I kind of saw too. I thought Farabee looked terrible, to be honest with you. I didn't necessarily think. I just didn't really think. This isn't just harbor to those guys. I don't think anybody looked visible, but those were some of them looked a lot worse than others, and I think that's why they kind of did it. So, honestly, I feel like for the most part, listen, they won the game. It wasn't pretty, but I think tonight's the night where you kind of expect them to, take charge now, because again, they need points, obviously, and they've won 2 straight, regardless of how they played. So you kind of have to keep that in mind and try to build some momentum off of it. Even though I don't really know how Saturday's game, you don't really build momentum off of that either. You know what I mean? Like they start that game. Yeah.
There's been so many instances this year where you're like, oh, is this going to be the game where they finally built something off of it? Because it's felt like there's been many of those games this month. The 4-3 win against Pittsburgh when they came back from 3-0. The one of those games against the Islanders where they dominated the entire time, but they lost. But that's something to build off of. Right. The game where they played against the New York Rangers the past weekend and was one of their best played games the entire year.
Yeah. This whole month, they've put games together where they've played really good in one game, had some really good effort, and it looks like it's one of those games that's like a pivot point on the season where you kind of turn things around. But then the next game, it's just completely gone. Like, and going off the Islanders game, you said they lose the Islanders game Monday night, Tuesday night, completely flat against New Jersey, just completely flat, and then they lost 2 straight after that.
Yeah.
Or 3 straight, I don't remember, but still, it was just terrible. But they've won 2 straight, so hopefully they can continue that into tonight.
Yeah, hopefully. It's just when you're playing a team that is on an 18-game losing streak, you don't want to be that team that ends the streak for Buffalo. That's just gonna, oh my man, if the Flyers end that streak for Buffalo, Jesus.
It's funny. I don't know if you listened to my video. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
I made the video when they lost 8-3 to the Rangers, and I said, watch this team lose to Buffalo. I was that close. I was that close to calling it.
I feel like everyone was calling that too, and it's just like, oh, they're up, they're losing 3-0. Oh boy, here we go. And then, typical Flyers fashion, they score all their goals in the third period, and they win the game in overtime. Yeah. I guess you could say that's a typical Flyers win from the past decade. So to get into the other topics today, yes, you have the game tonight at 7:30. It is also on national television, NBC Sports Network. So we are either going to get really embarrassed on national television once again, or I don't know.
I listen. I don't know how this game's going to play out. I know you said it to me in the beginning, like, would you be surprised if Lion wasn't net? And I still think they're going to go with Moose, but I wouldn't be mad if Lion wasn't net. Like they won games last year in a pinch where Lion had to come in, back when Hart was hurt around the All-Star break, or coming back from the All-Star break, excuse me. So, if they have to play Lion, they have to play Lion. I don't mind Lion. We've had Lion on the show before. He's a really nice guy. Yeah. And I give him all the props, because it's not easy for what he's gone through. Essentially been an AHL goaltender the whole time, when he easily could probably be an NHL backup on some teams, like we've talked about before. So I wouldn't necessarily be completely opposed to Lion being in that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if AV elect to go with Alex Lyon tonight, but you never know what's going to happen. Moose does have a great record in his career against the Buffalo Sabres more than any other goaltender in the league, so I wouldn't be surprised either way. Yeah. And also, before we get into the ghost stuff, I want to get your thoughts on, I know we texted back and forth on this, what are your full thoughts on Alain Vigneault's decision to just have Carter Hart be a healthy scratch for these past 2 games and just let him focus on practicing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in my eyes, I think the defense is just that bad, and that's the reason why Hart's been struggling. When you give up that many high-quality chances, you're going to give up a lot of goals. They didn't give up that many last year. They only I think they gave up the league best 23 shots a game. And Hart he's got a lot of highlight reel saves, but a lot of them, if you look at them, they're in times where the Flyers don't play good. Like the one against Colorado, that was one of their worst stretches of the year, those 3 games there. And then the end of the month, they were terrible of December. The playoffs, they didn't necessarily play their best in the playoffs. He had that great glove save on Nelson.
And he shut out Montreal 2 times in a row. Yeah.
Again, we'll just forget Carter Hart was the reason that, they essentially went to the game 7 of the second round. But again, I think for the most part, I just think the defense is that bad. Yes. I mean, the defense has been equally as bad this month in front of Moose than it has Hart. I don't think any goaltender could stop that. I think Vasilevsky would give up that many goals if the defense was that bad in front of him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because it's the same goals that go in every game. I've talked about this before. It's the missed guy in front, or the 2 guys going to the puck, or sometimes even 3 guys going to the puck. We saw in that one Islanders game on the tying goal late by Wahlstrom. There's just a handful, and not even a handful. I could count it on. I don't even think I couldn't even have, one set of hands couldn't even count how many times they have defensive breakdowns in one period. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, listen, if they think Hart has to battle harder, then yes, I'll say this. I think there are times where Hart, you probably could say, oh, you might want that one. But then again, I look at it as a perfect example of this is Buffalo's first goal last game, right? The Yoki Haru goal.
Yep.
It's Moose probably could want that one. It goes 5-hole, but he's wide open. And Morin and Ghost are on the same side. Nobody picks him up. And
all 5 players were on the same.
All 5 guys are on the same side of the ice to make matters even worse. So, again, I don't necessarily look at it as a huge goaltending problem because their defense is just that bad. But, again, I think there's been a lot of time. I mean, Moose kept them in that game.
Yeah.
I'll say that. In the first period, it easily could have been 2-3-0 in the first handful of minutes. And then even in the second period, it could have been 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7-0 with the amount of chances they had. So I don't look at it as a goaltending problem. But again, I like the decision. I think it's fine for Hart. I think one of those things that you see with Hart is that the days he has off, he kind of comes back and he's ready to play again. And we've seen that at times this year, but I think it's just so hard for him. I know I'm going long here, but I think it's just so hard for him to regain confidence if the same things are happening every night. Because it's it feels like once he gives up that goal, it's he can't get it back. And it's just because the defense is that bad in front of him.
Yeah, I can definitely see that 100%. And I like this comment right here from Dibe saying, major respect to Chris for always finding the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, Chris has always been the more optimistic group person out of the bunch here at the Fired Up podcast, and he still is a very optimistic person, so you can always respect that. So to get into the Gostisbehere stuff, because we have a lot of comments here about Gostisbehere. So we got one right here from Zebra saying, so what's the reason with the ghost stuff? Odd move now that he's cleared waivers, right? So I think you can even go back to, I think, Chuck Fletcher's press conference a week ago when he was talking about how difficult it was, I guess, for teams to calling in for players. And I feel like one guy, he wasn't calling out any specific player, but I think with this situation, maybe the guy he was referring to was Ghost. Maybe because, his contract might be more difficult to trade just because he hasn't been that same impact defenseman that he was a couple of years ago. He's making 4.5 on the cap, and he still has a contract for another few years. So that definitely wouldn't interest a team whatsoever. No. And then it was expected that he was going to clear waivers. I don't think anyone was going to take him for free. No. But so I think this move, and we're going to be discussing this a lot, is just to, and they said it too in the press conference yesterday, it's for cap flexibility to where they have more cap space going into the trade deadline, to where they have more leverage and it can take on more contracts. And who knows, maybe these moves can help bring up some of the young guys that are playing with the Phantoms, guys like Wade Allison, Linzinski. Those guys have been lighting it up down there.
Yeah,
and who knows? Who knows? Maybe a Cam York signs its entry level. That could also be a possibility.
He could. And one thing I will say about the Phantoms, their game tonight against Hershey's on NHL Network at 7. So the Flyers are 7:30 on National, and the Phantoms are 7 o'clock on NHL Network. So I'll be recording that Phantoms game, watching that later. But I'll say this about the Ghost situation. He's gone from last year, he was in and out of the lineup after every game, and still played power play and all that stuff. Essentially played third pairing.
Yeah.
This year he plays top pairing, still plays power play. He's gone from first unit power play reps in practice and all that stuff, second unit in games, first unit in games, whatever. So he's gone from first unit to a scratch for 3 games to third pairing to waivers. So clearly, they don't see enough in him. Or I've said it before. If they are going to use Gostisbehere, use him in the way that he's going to help you. Don't put him in spots where he isn't going to do anything. And I think him as a third pairing defenseman is fine. I thought him as a first pairing defenseman was fine because he played good. I watched his game. I thought he looked very good defensively. He didn't make, he looked like old-fashioned Ghost at times. He did. I'll say that. He made some good reads defensively. He moved the puck up the ice. He didn't have many turnovers. He helped out Provorov. Provi helped out him. Whatever. They looked okay. And then he had that hiccup game against Pittsburgh. I think it was the 5-2 game. Yeah, the 5-2 game. Had the turnover to Kapanen. He just didn't look. He didn't look the best. And then he kind of was back and forth, and then he was a scratch, as I said. And then he came back and played third pairing with Morin, which I think he's actually really good with Morin. Because the thing is with waivers, I think what people don't understand is if you clear waivers, you could still play.
Yeah. Some people don't understand that.
Yeah. But my thing is that I don't think he's going to play tonight. And the only reason is because when you bring up the cap space, the only way that the Flyers get the $1,075,000, which, and again, this might be wrong for me. I don't know if this is the only way, but that's the way I interpreted the tweet, which I will pull up right now so I don't get it mixed up. This is a tweet from Tony Andrakidis. So it's Shane, and this was yesterday around when Ghost was put on waivers. Shayne Gostisbehere clearing waivers and then being assigned to the taxi squad would free up $1,075,000 cap space if the Flyers were looking to free up space to add something. And the reason they did that is because the Flyers are essentially broke. They have no money. They don't even have $1 million in cap space. As of yesterday, they had $942,707 in cap. So they don't even have $1 million to do anything. So my guess is that he's not going to play tonight. I wonder, and now that we're doing this, they might have done it now. I wonder if they I don't know. I haven't looked at Twitter. There's been nothing from the Flyers, no tweets or anything. So I didn't know if they maybe would have, put him on the taxi squad because we could have saw that announcement. But if he clears waivers, he can still play. But I don't know if he has to go on the taxi squad so they get the cap, or do they already get the cap? I don't know how that works.
I think I remember seeing another tweet. I think this is from Brendan Summerman saying that with him clearing waivers, the Flyers automatically save around that $1 million in cap space. And if he goes to the taxi squad, they save around $2 to $2.5 million in cap space. So I think with him clearing waivers, they clear it automatically with that $1 million in cap space.
Gotcha.
So
yeah,
I think that's the way it works. And who knows? Maybe I would think Ghost plays tonight just because
I would too. But that was the thing. But I just didn't know what the cap because I would want him to play. Yeah, because I think he's played fine to where he could play. That's so weird though, wouldn't it be? Like he goes on waivers one day, and he's in the lineup.
They probably told him about like that or something like that. Chuck Fletcher, Lane Vigneault.
He was at practice yesterday.
Yeah, so we're going to put you on waivers. This is basically just to save some type of money, and you're not going to leave the team whatsoever. You're probably still going to be playing tomorrow night, so don't take any offense to this. I'm assuming that's what they probably told him or something like that. Yeah. So I would assume there's everything is fine. I would assume Ghost is going to be in the lineup tonight. And I guess in terms of trading, who knows what could happen with the trade deadline. And maybe could Gostisbehere be that guy they trade eventually? Could they trade for something else? Because by the time the trade deadline does come up, the Flyers, with their banking so much cap space throughout the entire season with sending guys consistently up and down from the taxi squad, they're going to have a good amount of cap space when the trade deadline comes. And especially waiving Ghost does help add some more cap to the cap space.
Yeah.
So I wonder, because they can take on another roster spot, they can call up guys from the AHL, and who knows, maybe it could be a big trade, maybe it could be a small trade. Who knows what could happen? Like, what do you think about that, Chris? Like, what do you think their move is going to be at the deadline, or even before it?
I have a feeling it's going to be like a hockey trade. That's like, I don't know if it's going to be. Listen, I still think that big move happens in the summer if they go for that big defenseman, like one of the two defensemen on Nashville that has a last name that starts with E. So I don't know if it's going to be like a hockey trade or if it's going to be like one of those like business deals, which are kind of the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
My thing is this though. I think it's probably going to be like something like picks and like a prospect. Probably like maybe like a lower quality prospect for like a roster player. Something that my guess would probably be like a top 4 defenseman that's like cheap, but I don't know how they do that. I don't know who they could get too. I think there's been rumors of a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
I saw something, and we just got a comment from my dad about Jonathan Bernier. Why would they go for a goaltender? Like, and this is kind of the stuff weird. This is kind of the stuff that I would like ignore, to be honest with you, because it's like, I just don't really see it being, to me, it's not really relevant. Like, I just don't understand why the Flyers would go for a goalie. I don't think bringing in Bernier would be a bad idea. I just think they have other needs right now. And that's kind of where I wanted to get into the Cam York thing that you brought up. Like, maybe they sign York. Maybe. I think they're going to do that in the summer because they have a lot of needs that they have to fill right now. And my guess would be they just wait out the rest of this year because there's only 2 months left in the season. And that's if they make the playoffs. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know, but I'd love to see.
I think because with the whole situation with Michigan having to drop out of the NCAA tournament because of the COVID precautions, honestly, I can see them signing him to his entry level and him just going down to play with the Phantoms. Honestly, I don't want Cam York on the NHL roster just because I don't want him playing in that shithole of a defense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think he's gonna come up either. I think if he does, he would go down to Lehigh Valley. That's if they sign him.
Yeah,
I know a lot of guys have been getting signed. Caulfield got signed to Montreal. Matthew Boldy.
Yeah, Chicago signed a couple of their guys.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Chicago, did you see Kirby Dach came back?
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know if we talked about that on the last show. I don't know if we did a show when he came back or what. But that wasn't he supposed to be out the whole year?
I think so. I think he was going to be out a good chunk of it. Maybe the recovery took quicker than it needed to be. But and speaking of Chicago too, they just been like that Central Division. It's that 4th place spot, man. It's like because now Nashville's back in the picture. So who even knows if Nashville even wants to get rid of one of their defensemen now that they're back in the picture of the playoffs.
Nashville's won 6 straight.
Yeah, they've been good really recently. Their defense has been good. Their goaltending has been good. Their offense has been a little bit better than the beginning of the season, but
that seems like it's going to be a top 3 heavyweights. Tampa and Florida both have 50 points. Carolina's got 49, and then it's 39 for Nashville and Chicago. Columbus with 36. The Stars with 32, which is very surprising. And then the Red Wings are kind of the bottom feeder.
I think the Stars have been hit with so much to start this year. They had their gigantic COVID outbreak in the beginning of the season. They don't have Tyler Seguin at all. Then they got hit with the snowstorm down in Texas, which caused them to not play a couple of their games at home. They've just been hit with a lot of stuff, so I can understand why they're probably not as good as they were last year.
And 10.
Oof.
That's a lot. That's a lot of overtime losses.
Yeah, and like for other teams that have been really good, the Carolina Hurricanes have been fantastic this year.
Yeah, they have been. They've looked really good. So is Florida.
Yeah, Florida's been really good too.
Man, that Ekblad injury, I hate seeing that. That's terrible. Seriously, I seriously hope Ekblad is okay.
Yeah,
because that's not something you want to see to literally anybody. Like that could be like career ending. I don't think it is. I think it's just he obviously needs surgery.
Yeah.
And he's out for the year. That's obvious. But
I think the earliest he could come back, and that's even if Florida goes that deep into the playoffs, I think he could probably be back by the second round from what it sounded like. But I wouldn't say they risk
what's
it
that,
at
July?
all. I think so. Maybe I think the timeline was at least 12 weeks or something like that. So that's like around 3-4 months.
Yeah, like late June, early July, something like that.
Yeah, because the finals they're not going to be until July or something like that, since the season ends at the beginning of May.
The last possible date for the Cup is July. Is it 16th or something? In the middle of the month, something like that.
I think it's somewhere around there. And I know there was also rumors yesterday talking about how Florida, they might, with the Ekblad situation, they might have picked Ghost up on waivers, but then that rumor got debunked, I think, this morning by guys like Bill Meltzer and Eklund and stuff like that. So I guess maybe Florida was interested, then they were just like, maybe we don't want to do this. So it's going to be weird. And other teams that have been really, with the Eastern Division, separated from third to fourth place is by 10, 12 points or something like that between fourth and third. So I know
for the East,
yeah, because the Flyers and Boston, they're the teams right now battling out for the fourth place spot, and then teams like Pittsburgh, the Islanders, and the Capitals, they're just miles above the fourth place team.
Yeah, it's the thing is that Boston is 3 points ahead of the Flyers with 2 games in hand, and they're 4 games back of Pittsburgh, and they're 7 points behind them. The Flyers have played, as I said, 34 games. They got 38 points, and the Rangers are 2 points back of them. So the Flyers just got to really worry about themselves and just keep winning here.
Yep.
It's all they really can do. And it's so weird. I look at the goal differentials and everything, and it just boggles my mind. The Flyers have a negative 17 goal differential, but that's what happens when you give up, when
you lose 9-0, lose 8,
6, 3 times. That's kind of what happens when you give up, astronomical amount of goals in one game.
Yep. That's definitely what happens. And just getting over into some of the other comments, another comment about the veteran goaltender or something like that with Jonathan Bernier. That was a weird thing. Why would they go after a goaltender? But you never know what's going to happen at this point.
Yeah.
Then we got a comment right here from Arnie saying, with Ghost clearing, does that mean Morin takes his place? I would like to see that grit on the back end if he can play NHL hockey. So we talked about this earlier, that Ghost isn't off the roster. Most likely I would expect him to play tonight. I would expect mainly the same lineups, mainly with just the waiver situation. It was just to get more money to the cap space. That's basically all that move, and to probably make a better move for a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And then this situation says how solid Matt Niskanen was. Bad spelling on the line for me. So yeah, it's with the Matt Niskanen situation, it's still mind-boggling. It's Matt Niskanen, even though for how good he made the defense, Matt Niskanen doesn't prevent a team from losing 9-0. It doesn't prevent a team.
Go ahead.
He doesn't prevent a team from losing 8-3 or something like that. It's just, it feels like there's a lot of young guys that are just all having bad seasons at once. Provorov's not having the best season. Sanheim and Myers, they took 2 steps back.
Yeah, I think that's the answer right there, is they have too many young guys.
Yeah.
I think that's what Fletcher means, when they say they don't have the right mix of players. They have too many young guys. They don't have that veteran like they did in Niskanen.
Yeah.
And Braun isn't cutting it, which, again, it's nothing against Braun. I like Braun. I think he's a good player. It's just, there's only so much one guy can do, and I don't think Braun's he's not put in that position. Yeah. So, listen, I think it's tough. I mean, I think this whole year is just I think it's just one of those throw it in the trash years for every team, because you don't even know, some of these teams look so good, but if you compare them to other teams in different divisions, it's are they going to play that good? You know what I mean? Florida, for example. Is Florida really that good, or is it because of that division isn't really that good? You know what I mean? It's them and 2 other teams that are the top 3, and then that's really it.
Mm-hmm.
So
the same thing could be said for the Western Division with that's also it feels like a top 3 type of division with Vegas, Minnesota, and then St. Louis
is really fun to watch.
Yeah, St. Louis has been off and on this year.
Yeah, I feel like that's been every year though. Aren't they always like that? But I mean, even the year they won the Cup.
I think with the loss of Pietrangelo, it really hurt them.
Yeah.
Even I know they got Krug, but like I don't think he was going to replace what Pietrangelo brought them.
Yeah.
And like a team like Calgary, just like they fire their head coach, they bring in the new head coach, and they're still off and on. Like he even called out Johnny Gaudreau like before his 500 games, saying, "Oh, he didn't play that good" or something like that. So like Calgary is also a team that I feel like they're in some sort of the same situation the Flyers are in, like not identically, but they're a team like similar situations. They're a team that has a lot of good talent, but they can never live up to their expectations consistently every year. So I can see a team like Calgary.
I've always looked at Calgary as a team that's like a one-line team.
Yeah, I could see them possibly shaking it up because I know Sam Bennett, he's on the trading block most likely.
He's been rumored for years though.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Calgary takes a risk and they trade one of their top guys and like a Monahan or a Gaudreau in the offseason. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe they just shake up the core.
They could. I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy because I think there's other like Edmonton, for example, right? Everybody looks at them as like a cup favorite every year because they have McDavid and Draisaitl. But I think everybody knows in hockey you can't win a Stanley Cup with two guys. You need all four lines, your three D pairs, and your one goaltender or your two goaltenders, like some teams have done, where you've seen teams use two goalies in the playoffs, and the Caps did that in 18 with Grubauer there.
Yeah.
But like,
speaking of the Caps too, they've been really good this year too.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of that Peter Laviolette effect in his first year as a coach.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean they've looked good. The Caps look different than what they usually would. Like last year, I didn't look at the Caps as that much of a threat. I'd be like, yeah, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look at them this year, I'm like, oh god, because they were good, and I'm really excited for this next game. The Flyers play Boston because it's hopefully. I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully the Flyers have a full lineup before then.
Oh, God.
Going into that game where they don't lose anybody, because where you can have your top six players not be missing, have half your AHL lineup out there like he did in the Tahoe game, and have like essentially 1/3 of a line with Coots, JVR, and Farabee, and that was pretty much it. So. I'm hoping that the next time the Flyers play Boston, it's a full lineup and they're healthy and everything, because I'm curious to see how that matchup plays out.
Yeah. They're playing them 3 times next week, so they play Monday, Tuesday, then Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's that's the final 3 games of the season series against Boston too. That's like what the Flyers are 0-3-2 against Boston this year, and it would be nice to get some wins against Boston for once. So
I wouldn't be surprised if the Flyers won the last 3 games.
I would hope so.
With the way they play, who knows?
Yeah, because with Boston now having the games in hand because of their COVID situation, those games are a little more important now because you and Boston are now battling for 4th place.
And say they do win all 3 of those games, that's 3 games off of their games in hand, and that's 6 points for the Flyers. So
because the schedule for the rest of the week, you got Buffalo tonight, and you actually have 2 days off for once, Thursday and Friday. Then you play Saturday against the Islanders, and then you got the tough schedule next week with both Boston on Monday and Tuesday. And I know they play Boston. Who do they play Thursday? It's completely slipping my mind.
I know. Is it the Islanders again?
I'm not sure if it's another Islanders game, another Sabres game. It could be. I don't think it's. Man, that one game is slipping my mind. Because I'm so focused on Boston next week.
It is the Islanders again.
It is the Islanders next week. Okay. So just it's gonna be a tough schedule, and you gotta focus on tonight. You really you can't come out like last game. You just can't.
No, you gotta win tonight. You got Buffalo tonight, as you said, the Islanders. Boston Monday, Boston Tuesday, so that's a back-to-back. Thursday's the Islanders, and then Saturday is Boston again. Like you said, that's an afternoon game at 2, and then you play Sunday at 2:00. You play Buffalo at home. They're both home games. Do the Sixers, are they home that night? Saturday, Sunday? They got late games at home, like 8:00. Are they national?
They might.
Yeah, because 2:00 is a weird start for a Flyers game at home.
On a Saturday.
I'm assuming the Sixers.
Yeah. Who knows? There could be a Sixers one. I have to actually look at their schedule too, because now I am really curious about that. Because I know the Sixers, they lost their game last night to Denver. They just didn't show up whatsoever. So let me get to the Sixers. Let me see their schedule.
They're on the road.
They're on the road.
Yeah, they play Saturday night at 9:00 on the road.
Okay.
So I think that actually might be one of those rescheduled ones that the NHL did.
Yeah, I think one of these Boston games was the rescheduled one.
Yeah,
I think it was specifically the Monday one that was rescheduled because of the COVID outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be.
I can't wait for 4 straight games against New Jersey. It's gonna be great.
God.
Points. That's all that matters right now for the Flyers. I mean, obviously you're not happy with the way you play, but yeah. Again, like I know Coots said it the other night, like you got to be happy they won 2 points. They got 2 points, but that was terrible the way they played that.
They just like I don't know how you play like that against. Like I know the Devils have been hot recently, especially when they play the Boston Bruins. But if I know it's the what the Devils this year, what are they like? I think they were like 4-0-1 at first, but now they're 4-0-2 against Boston or something like that. Like for some reason, New Jersey is Boston's kryptonite this year.
Yeah, they have I think they have 2 shutouts against them, 1-0 in both games, and I think both of them were on national television.
Oof.
And they were both in Boston.
Oh. Yeah, I guess Boston I guess Devils this year are just that one team they can't beat for some reason.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Even though for the Flyers, they seem they can't beat any team this year.
I know,
especially recently.
Yeah, I remember Jersey played them like the first 2 games of the year, and they split. They went 1-0-1 against them both. They both went 1-0-1. Because they won. They lost their first game in a shootout, and then they won. I think it was an afternoon game. They won in overtime.
Yeah. Exactly. I know, like during that stretch, that was like when Boston didn't score a goal at 5-on-5 or something like that. All their goals came on special teams, so that was a lot. And I think that was just a stretch with the Devils series too. Like even going into last night's game, they still haven't scored a 5-on-5 goal against the Devils, and I think that changed last night. But yeah, I think that was just like a weird stretch.
Yeah, and then in the beginning of the year, that was obviously went away when they played the Flyers.
Yeah,
when they scored 4 goals in the third period, and the Flyers blew a 2-0 lead on the road.
So I guess now I guess going more into the trade deadline thoughts, like I guess who was a guy that you think or would want the Flyers to try and go after, whether it's a small or big, whatever, like what do you think the Flyers should go after?
For hockey trade purposes, I want them to get a top 4 defenseman that's affordable. I'd like Savard. I just think his cap might be too high for them. $4,025,000, I think. 4.025 is his cap.
I think they would be able to take that salary with the cap they've been banking at the trade deadline, so they might be able to take on that type of contract.
They could, yeah. I think it just depends on what they give up to, because obviously, if you're getting a roster player, you're probably gonna have to give up another roster player or a prospect.
Yeah.
Or maybe both. It depends on the haul they bring back. Like if they were to get Bernier, like, and this is kind of to go off of it, I wouldn't mind it if it was a package. Like if they got like a defenseman with Bernier or something, and like give up a prospect or something, like
maybe a Mark Stahl type of defenseman or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And again, I'm not saying that they should get Mark Stahl. I'm just saying in general. I know that's been a rumor too, which I don't necessarily think that would be a horrible fit. I just don't think it's what the Flyers need.
Yeah.
Because I just think it might be a guy that's a little too past his prime. And like it makes sense because he, played under AV. And I'm sure AV would like to coach him again. And I'm sure it's a guy that he's familiar with in his game and everything. Mm-hmm. Because I think if they get a top 4 defenseman, they can kind of clean up their pairs a little bit. And you might be able to get some more consistency with everybody.
Maybe.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at here is that I know everybody wants to say that the one guy is going to change what's on the ice, but I think it's going to change what's in the locker room. And I think that's the issue is that they clearly have leaders. And I'm not going to sit here and argue the Giroux leadership, Jake, Coots, Hayes, Provy thing. I'm done with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about as a team, like they have too many young guys.
Yeah.
And they clearly have leaders because they literally have stepped up in games, and they did that last night or Monday night. But I just don't know what they do now because they're kind of in a pickle with the cap and everything. And my thing is, like, they could do it before the trade deadline, or they could do it after, or
in the offseason.
Before, or in the offseason. Or they could do it the day of the deadline. So I don't know when they'll do it. I think it's going to be coming soon, though.
Yeah.
And then probably in the next week would be my guess.
I think watch out for the next 2 days just because the Flyers have 2 days off. So maybe that's when ideally you might see something happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it could even happen, as we're talking right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be happening.
Yeah, it's one of those things that happens. Like it's nothing. And could you imagine if we just called it or something? Like we just said, "Oh, they've been trade." Open our phones. It's like trade. We have acquired defenseman. It's like, what the hell?
We have acquired defenseman Ryan Ellis from the Nashville Predators.
Oh, Spencer Knight got his ELC.
Oh, we did. Nice for
Florida.
him.
Yeah, from 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know a lot of the college kids now are getting their ELCs, especially guys like you said, Cole Caulfield, now Spencer Knight. And have you watched any of the games from the NC tournament for hockey, or really haven't been paying attention to it?
I was looking at some of it. I haven't really paid too much attention to it. I watched some of the 5 overtime game, which was insane.
Yeah, that was really insane.
Yeah, but I haven't really paid too much attention to it.
Yeah, I know. They're shaping up for the Frozen Four. It's going to be in Pittsburgh, and it's going to be I know Minnesota Duluth. There's one of the Flyers on there. I forget
Noah
which.
Cates.
Yeah, Noah Cates is on Minnesota Duluth. So, and Minnesota Duluth, they're back-to-back champions so far. So they're 2-time defending champions for the Frozen Four. So who knows? Maybe they can go for a 3rd straight in a row. I know St. Cloud State. I think this is their first time in program history, or I think it's one of the other Minnesota states that is their first time. It's one of the either or, but St. Cloud State hasn't been to the Frozen Four in a while, and one of the Minnesota teams that made it their first time in program history. So it's going to be I would say an exciting Frozen Four. The Frozen Four is always really exciting, and it's going to be in Pittsburgh, so they're going to have fans in the arena. So cool. That'll be something interesting we get to see. I know for some other Flyers prospects, I know Jay O'Brien was on Boston University, and they got eliminated. And I know there was another, I think Gavin Hain was on North Dakota, and they got eliminated in the 5 overtime game.
Yeah, to Minnesota. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's some interesting times for Flyers prospects, but also, I guess to stick on the prospect talk, how about that Linzinski between the legs goal? How about that?
I know, right? It's it's insane with that. The fact that he does that in a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's
shorthanded.
Insane. Yeah, shorthanded too. When I saw him when I went to the Phantoms game, he looked good. I haven't really, excuse me, it's a mid yawn. I haven't really been able to catch much of the Phantoms. I mean, I've seen obviously recaps and stuff. I know they've been winning games. They've played some good hockey. I know the one game they got blown out to Hershey, 5-2 or 5-3 or something, but it was 5-0 at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I think all the goals came in the second too.
Oof.
I don't know, but
sounds like the Flyers.
Yeah, they've been playing some good hockey, and again, as I mentioned before, I know there are people live on here. I know more people joining stuff. I did mention before, Phantoms are live tonight on NHL Network at 7. They play Hershey, and that's on NHL Network. So you can check that out as the Flyers are on national television at 7:30, and then Phantoms at 7. But yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, I think Legzinski's been good. I wouldn't be surprised if they call him up. I think they'll probably call up him instead of Allison, just because of the way that they've played. But I'd love to see both get called up. They were 2 guys that we said in the beginning of the year, before they got hurt, was that they probably could make the team out of camp.
Yeah.
But my thing is if one of them gets called up, who you sitting? Because my guess would probably be NAK.
Maybe him.
You're not sitting because you're not sitting Farabee. I think you got to keep Raffle in the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most likely I would say NAK would be the odd guy out.
Yeah.
If you're gonna bench anyone. And I know we got a comment right here from Random Gaming 101 saying, when do you think Wiley is gonna come up? I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't think he's one of the first options for the team to call up. I think he still needs
years probably.
Yeah, most likely he still needs a lot of time down with the Phantoms. I would say more of a defenseman they call up more is a guy like Zamula or something like that. But even I still don't see that as a possibility right now because I don't think they want to put any of the younger defensemen in the trash heap of the defensive core right now. So right now with prospects, most likely just expect guys like either Allison or Linzinski to be called up. I don't think they can call up Millman because he's still on an AHL contract and his ELC contract that he just signed. It doesn't go until the offseason starts.
Yeah, so, I think that's the same thing with Logan Day too. I think he was re-signed by the Phantoms, and he's actually second on the team in points as a defenseman.
Oh, wow.
I think Derek Poyat has more. I think he had 1 point more. When I last looked, he had 7 points, I think, in 10 games. So he looked good too. When I actually went to the game, he took a scary fall into the boards. Like one of those ones where like they kind of fall in the corner and just kind of slide into the boards, and they can't really help themselves. And it was one of those, and he hit the boards hard. And you know how the boards are at Lehigh Valley, where it's not on the far side, it's on the other side where the Phantoms come out in the tunnel behind the back.
Yeah,
and it's all open there.
Oh.
Yeah, so I obviously those boards are different because they're like more live boards. We've seen that with a lot of arenas and like the outdoor games and stuff. Yeah. And like Joe Louis Arena is obviously famous for it. So I don't know if that's like a different impact on the boards there, but he was down for a couple minutes, and I think he did end up coming back in the game, but still.
Yeah, it's the Phantoms. It's still weird too because with the AHL aren't they not doing playoffs this year just because of the whole COVID situation? I don't think there's going to be playoffs at all.
The AHL?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing something like they're just playing games right now without any playoffs.
Really?
And yeah, I think that's one of the things they're doing. Just because of everything. Who knows, that could change in due time, but I think right now they're not doing anything playoff-wise this year. I think they're just playing games to play games.
I hope they have playoffs. I don't remember seeing anything about that, to be honest with you. But I hope they have playoffs. I want to see some Phantoms playoff hockey. But the way that they've played, it's like they had the one really good year in 17-18 and they got to the conference final, but the Marlies were just so good that year.
Yeah. No one was beating the Marlies.
No. And the only team that came close was Texas, and they took them to 7. Was that game 7 or 6?
6 or 7 or something like that.
It was 6, I think.
Yeah. And former Flyers goaltender, I think Cal Picard was on that Marlies team when they won the Calder Cup.
What's his face was in that? Mike McKenna.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with Texas. Yeah. I think they also had Rope Hintz.
Oh yeah, Rope Hintz.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, who was it? Oh, did they have Kiwi Ranta too?
I'm not sure about that.
Or am I just naming every Stars rookie?
I think you're just naming every Stars player now.
Okay. Yeah.
So we got a comment here from Cryptic Cowboy saying he wants Ryan Ellis. The price will be high, but they need a guy like him. I see more if they do eventually go after a guy like Ellis, because you never know what's going to happen. I see that more as an off-season type of move, just because right now with Nashville, they're still technically in the race, and Ellis is injured. I think he's still. How much longer do you think he isn't from coming back? Is he still like a couple of weeks? Is he a couple of games or something like that?
I'll check on that because I'm not 100% sure. I didn't even know he's hurt.
Yeah, I know he's been hurt for a while. I think when he got his injury, he was like 4 to 6 weeks or something like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, definitely Ryan Ellis would be a guy that would definitely help this blue line out a lot. And maybe it could be more impactful than a guy like Ekholm because Ellis, he has more term on his contract, and I think he's a younger defenseman than Ekholm. So maybe, who knows, maybe it's a guy that's more of an impact on the roster for the foreseeable future. And I know Fletcher was talking about that too. But like, we need to not make moves, especially just for more of the future than for the right now. And I think that's what he was focusing on too, like getting guys to help up this roster. And we got a comment also right here about hearing about Klingberg was on the Flyers radar. That would be nice. Yes, a guy like Klingberg would also be nice for this Flyers roster as well. And there's also another defenseman that is going to be a free agent next year. And I want to get your thoughts on this. So do you think Dougie Hamilton re-signs with Carolina?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah. I think they would be stupid to let him go. He's like, every year he's like up there as like everybody's like top 10, top 15 defenseman. I think he's an easily top 20 defenseman in the league.
Oh,
easily.
Definitely.
He's fantastic. He's one of the better right-handed defensemen.
Yes, he is.
I'd say him, Burns, Carlson, and Doughty are the top four, and you could I'm forgetting Pietrangelo. You could throw him up there too. They're probably top 5. You could put them in any order. I could care less, but yeah, I think Hamilton's insane, and I think him and Slavin are unbelievable. I mean, Carolina's got some good defensemen.
Now to say if Dougie Hamilton doesn't re-sign with Carolina and he does hit the open market, and
go for him.
If the Flyers were to shed some salary in the expansion draft, make some trades, and they shed some type of salary, would you be against the Flyers going after a guy like him?
No, because that's exactly what they need. But the chances of all that happening are maybe probably under 1%. Honestly,
because if the Flyers make some moves, especially in the offseason, they shed some salary, whether that's a guy like a JVR, they take his money off the books. If he gets picked in the expansion draft, you shed a guy like Ghost, and you free up some cap space. You never know what. Maybe a Fletcher does go after the open market since he'll have money on his hands, and he maybe throws a little money just to say, hey, you might not want to come to Philadelphia, but these Benjamins say otherwise, and you might want to join the Flyers roster.
Hopefully he doesn't do the 13-year 100 and
well he can't do that anymore. Thank God.
Zach Parise, oh God, the Ryan Suter contract.
Well, I mean, Suter for them, it has still been good. Parise is just he's just been shot.
He's old.
He's old. He's old. Yeah. And I think they still have
if they could 4 or 5 years contracts like in football, I think he would get league minimum. No, I'm kidding. But
don't they have still 4 or 5 years left on their contracts too? I think they still have a good amount.
2012 and it was 13 years.
Yeah,
so
4 or 5 years. Yeah, they're still a good amount of term at that age, and they're still making a lot of money.
And they're both 30. They're both over 35.
Yeah, they're in their mid-30s.
Yeah,
that's good. A little ugly
at
contrast.
the time, they're the best players in the game. I mean, Parise is one of the best forwards. From that Devils team.
Yeah,
and Suter's one of the best defensemen.
Yeah, and I wonder if some of those guys do hit the open market this year. I know this is just me being overly optimistic, and who knows what happens if Carolina does re-sign Dougie Hamilton, because I know there's been discussions and stuff like that, but I don't know if they've been anywhere close or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd want to stay in Carolina too with the way that they've played and the runs they've had, and it doesn't seem like he's had a good time in any other team. I mean, it didn't look like he fared well in Boston and
Calgary and stuff. This is the first team that he's really had some good success with.
You imagine if they still had Hamilton, Boston?
God, imagine if Boston actually picked right with their 3 picks in a row, and they picked guys like Barzal, Shabbat, and who else was available at that point?
Kyle Connor.
Connor. Imagine if they had all 3 of those guys.
Insane, dude.
Yeah, I think Boston would have. I think they probably would have beat the Blues in 2019.
Probably would have won 2 or 3.
Probably would have won 2 or 3 cups by now.
Dude, they could have had Barzal.
Yeah,
they could have. He's easily a top line player.
He is.
And he would be forced to play second line because of the perfection line.
Yeah, because of the perfection line, he'd be forced to play second line.
He'd be playing with Krejci and DeBrusk.
Yeah, probably. Well, if during that draft they wouldn't have DeBrusk because they picked Barzal, O'Connor, and Shabbat.
Well, they had the 3 picks. They still could have took DeBrusk.
Well, true. That's also true.
Yeah.
Well, it's you would have a second line of Krejci, Connor, and Barzal or something like that.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, Boston really did screw up with that draft.
And then you could have Connor.
Yeah.
They literally could have had Shabbat, McAvoy, Barzal with Krejci, or say DeBrusk or something, or who's one of their second line guys? I'm trying to think of.
I'm
struggling to remember who's on their roster.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, we also got another comment right here too. The Bruins also could have had Konechny. Imagine if Boston.
TK fell a lot.
Yeah, he fell a lot.
And the Flyers grabbed him because if they didn't trade up, I think Toronto would have got him.
Yeah, probably.
You imagine having Marner and Konechny on the same team?
Oh, jeez.
and Matthews and Hyman and Tavares and every other player the Leafs have.
Yeah. Man, that would just imagine if the Flyers actually won the draft lottery one of those years when it was one of the really good players. Imagine a Connor McDavid on the Flyers or something like that. Imagine an Austin, even though the Flyers weren't in the draft lottery at this, imagine an Austin Matthews in a Flyers uniform. Jeez.
I know. It is insane. It's how everybody is with Patrick. It's everybody, it's funny because what's his face was telling us this on the Flyers Nitty Gritty pod, Yariv. He was saying with the Subban thing, how everybody was saying to trade Coots for Subban.
Oh,
now everybody's saying to trade Patrick for Ekholm. And it's real similar because it's Coots is a guy that everybody kind of gave up on when he was young. It's exactly what people are doing with Patrick, and it's a defenseman the Flyers could have used at that time. You know what I mean? It's really similar, and it's a great point. And I think it's just that's how people are, and I think a lot of the trade stuff you see is when people just want to get rid of guys. It's all the guys they don't like. You know what I mean? I saw one time, and it was I won't say who it was, but it was something like Voracek, Patrick, O'Brien, and Allison. I think of myself, these are all guys that people literally just harp on all the time. O'Brien especially, as for prospect wise, he's one guy that everybody harps on for absolutely no reason. And it doesn't seem like many people obviously not many people like Patrick. Everybody has to complain about Jake. So there's so many things. And then obviously Allison would being hurt and stuff. Dude, it's funny. I wanted to mention this to you too. I've never seen a fan base that complain that much about passing over to Brinkett when they literally got Carter Hart in the same round.
Mm-hmm.
You literally drafted a franchise goaltender in the same round. And you're going to complain about not getting to Brinkett?
Because I can understand because you drafted LeBurge a couple of picks later, so I can understand you did have a chance, but.
Yeah, but still, you know what I mean? You took Carter Hart. It's not. It evens itself out and goes even more. And
I think this will be the last comment of the podcast because we're getting closer towards the hour mark here. So we got one last one from Cryptic Cowboy saying, "Think there was any truth that players don't want to sign in Philadelphia?" I mean. I know, during the Ed Snyder era, there were a lot of players that, they wanted to come to Philadelphia to play for Ed Snyder because they loved him as an owner. They loved the franchise and stuff like that. But I know I think more I know Philadelphia, hockey-wise, really hasn't just been a popular attraction just because of how the team has been for the recent decade and stuff like that. But I know, a player is going to come here when the money is right. They're just oh, I'm going to turn down this so much money contract because I don't want to play in Philadelphia, and I'm going to take a lesser contract to play for a different city. I don't think it's going to end up like that. I know when the Flyers, they eventually become a team that's more consistent and more good. Yeah, definitely the free agent market will be more attractive towards Philadelphia. But I know around something at this time and point might not be as attractive. But when the team eventually does get good, I think the free agent market will start to open up more for the Flyers in perspective, and they'll actually be able to sign maybe if they want to go out and sign a good free agent or something like that. Yeah. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's hard. If you look at all four of the sports, I think you could say kind of the same thing about all of them. I think there's guys that love playing here. There's guys that obviously don't like playing here, and you see that. I don't think there's more of that. I don't think there's that with the Flyers. I think you see that with other teams I think it's clear you see that with the Eagles a lot, Wentz and a lot of other guys that have kind of come and gone with them.
I think there's the Wentz situation as a whole was just such a dumpster fire situation that they just had to get out of it.
It's nothing against Wentz or anything, and I don't make it that he didn't want to play here. I don't want to make it like that, but it's kind of clear he obviously a fresh start would have been needed for him.
It's at that point you have to move on from him because the situation is just getting so bad at that point.
Yeah, and there's no there's no recovery at that point. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of that with guys, but again I think there's a lot of guys that love playing here.
Yeah, look at the Phillies when they went after Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper definitely got a lot of better offers on the table, but he picked here, even though he still got one of the more record-breaking contracts. He came here to take less term. over years. He took a 13-year deal with less term.
It's crazy. You say less term, it's 13 years.
Well, I meant
so
less money per year. I meant not term.
No, I hear it. No, I think like with the Sixers too, like obviously like Allen Iverson and everything.
Yeah. And I think with the Sixers this year, with the way how good they've been, they're definitely going to be attracting a lot more free and stuff like that. Like the guys to play with Embiid.
They're looked at as a contender. I mean, we've been saying that for a couple of years now, but I think this is like the kind of, this is
like the year that they have a really good shot at winning a championship.
Because honestly, I think that if Brooklyn isn't healthy, I think it's the Sixers division to lose. To be honest with you.
I'm not buying into Brooklyn at all.
No,
not buying. It's just because they're a really heavily offensive team, and if you look at a lot of games with Brooklyn, a lot of their games are really close.
Yeah, they're high scoring.
They're a high scoring team, but they can't defend. Like when you have James Harden's the guy that's not going to defend. Kyrie Irving's not going to defend. Like Kevin Durant's like their best defensive player, and he's coming off of an injury.
About basketball, so
and Kevin Durant is coming off of his major injury last season, which kept him out the entire year. So he's probably not going to be as good on defense as he probably would be. And I just don't see, like, I know a lot of these people that are getting bought out of teams in the NBA and they're signing with the Nets and stuff like that. I just don't buy, because I see the Nets going up against the Sixers. The Sixers are a much better defensive team. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, they're one of the best defensive players in the league. Matisse Thybulle, one of the best defensive players in the league. And if you put the Sixers up against the Nets in a 7-game series, I take the Sixers any time of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you because I don't know what to say. But I think you're right, and
that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that's it. But no, I mean, I think this is kind of the year for the Sixers. I would seem like there's a lot of hype around them, and I saw the Lakers got DeAndre Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know with the Lakers right now, they're dealing with their injuries to Anthony Davis and LeBron James, so they've kind of been faltering a little bit. But once they get those players back in the playoffs, they're going to be one of the teams to beat. Like, because Utah, they're one of the best teams in the league. But say if the Lakers, like, I remember watching one of these games, and I think it was the Sixers versus the Lakers, and they said, if the Lakers continue to fall a little bit and they drop to the 8th place spot, and they have to, because I know this year with the NBA, they're doing a couple of playing games to get to the playoffs for one of the lower ranked teams. Like, say if the Lakers get into one of those playing games and then they get LeBron James and Anthony Davis back, and then they have to play the Utah Jazz in a 7-game series in the first round, you're taking the Lakers any day of the week.
Are the Lakers really that low in the standings?
Yeah, because they don't have Anthony Davis and LeBron James right now. Both of them are injured. That's why they've been losing so much. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yes,
I gotta look at some standings here.
Yep.
Yeah, they're. I saw the Rockets like a 20-game losing streak.
Yeah, the Rockets have been bad. They have been bad. Yeah, and just like if going on terms of the Phillies too. I know we're going a little long here, but we'll end it right after this.
And completely off topic.
And completely off topic as well. This is like completely 3 other different sports right now.
What have you been watching the PGA Tour lately?
Hey, opening day is tomorrow. I would love to talk some Phillies baseball.
I am so excited for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just want to see some Harper piss missiles. Just top right. Gone. I just can't wait.
I want to look at the weather for tomorrow too, because I think it is supposed to rain tomorrow, and it's supposed to be like in the 40s. So that's perfect opening day weather. Like, give me opening day every day of the week.
High of 50.
High of 50, 55% chance of rain, and it's going to rain in the morning, then it's going to turn cloudy in the afternoon.
46 and windy at 1 o'clock. Oh, that's great baseball weather.
Perfect opening day weather. Nothing better.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to do it for the Fired Up podcast. We're over the hour mark as we speak. So Ghost cleared waivers. Probably going to set up for a trade, maybe, who knows, in the next couple of days or so. The Flyers have 2 days off after tonight's game against Buffalo. 7:30 national television. Hopefully we're not the team that ends the Buffalo Sabres losing streak. Let's try to extend their losing streak to 19 games because that'll be absolutely hilarious. Hopefully I didn't just jinx it, so I'm going to knock on wood just so I don't get blamed for it. And just a lot of stuff going in for the Flyers. And hey, everyone enjoy opening day tomorrow. It's going to be really fun. And enjoy tonight's Flyers game, or if you want to catch the Phantoms games that's on NHL Network, definitely go and do that. So that's going to do it for us here at the Fired Up podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our different YouTube channels. Also subscribe here to the Painted Lines everywhere else. And just follow Chris on Twitter @ Chris Maher. Follow me on Twitter at Amedeo Grassia 98, Flyers Fan Mania 93 for YouTube for Chris, and TTP Sports for me on YouTube. So it's going to do it for this episode here at the Flyer Up Podcast. And also don't forget to check out our merchandise website. That link will be in the description below. Don't forget to check out that BetRivers sponsor with the Painted Lines. And for this episode, we'll see you next time, everybody, and enjoy opening day tomorrow. It's going to be fun.